Why is my keto diet not working? Why is my carnivore diet not working? Why is my hybrid ketogenic bodybuilding plan not working the way I expected it to? These questions and more will be answered today on this episode, so stay tuned. All right, we're back. So before we get started today, I want to talk about today's sponsor. Now, I know this is the point in videos like this where you scroll ahead and get past that part and get to the stuff that you want to hear about. Well, do me a favor. Just give me a minute of your time because this is important to me. I just released a new coaching program. It's 90-minute video consultations via Zoom meeting software where you and I can sit down and talk about your goals and what you need and what is going to be the most direct path to get you on the path to becoming the best person you can possibly be. You know, beyond the calories and the macros and the percentages and the check-in picks and the programs and the numbers and all of these things. It's amazing what you can uncover just by having a one-on-one, in-depth conversation with somebody. And that's what this program is. So if you want to sit down with someone and draw on their nearly 30 years experience working with people in the trenches to maybe help you determine what you need to do, what might be best to do, and to lay the framework to putting together the best course of action to you becoming the best version of yourself that you can be, well, this is what that is. And listen, we're coming into 2023. I don't care who you are. We can all admit it. All of us, to a small degree, in the back of our heads think, okay, fresh start, January, new year, I need to get my crap together. So maybe having one of these conversations might help you put together some pieces to move you forward. And I'm also including monthly Zoom consultations to my gold coaching clients. I've added that to the program. So if you want full coaching, the best that I have to offer, and have the ability to meet with me every single month as we're on the plan, then the Gold Coaching Program has that as well. So check it all out. The description's below, all the links, and I look forward to speaking with you and hopefully having you on board as a client as we move into 2023. So, okay, enough of that. Onward. I hope you stuck by that. I appreciate your support. I recently changed some wording on my YouTube channel art. It used to just say carnivory as one of the things that I specialize in, that you'll get on my content. I just changed it to no BS carnivore. And that's because there is no shortage of phenomenal experts out there in this realm that talk about ketogenic diets, carnivore diets, strength training, bodybuilding, whatever. Some great resources out there. And I hope for some, I'm included in that list. But what I think might be needed, or at least what I've noticed might be needed, is for somebody to kind of whittle that information down, to render it down and make it simple and accessible and really take out any bullshit. And that's my goal. I've said for years, look back, I've said it many times. If something's working for you, keep doing it. But if there's something about what you're doing that you feel maybe an improvement could be made, maybe it's good, but it's not optimal, then try what I have to offer. And we'll try to find the most direct path to making it work for you. The phrase, why isn't my keto diet working? Why isn't my carnivore diet working? Well, that's a phrase that I get all the time. I get it in my Ketogenic Bodybuilding Facebook group. I get it on comments here on my YouTube channel. I get it on DMs or comments on my Instagram. I get emails from current clients who message me. Things aren't working. Well, the problem right out of the gate, if you want to cut through the BS here, is let's define the terms, okay? Because what drives me crazy, like just for example, if I get a post on my Facebook group or in my Facebook group, and it says, I've been doing keto for X number of weeks and it's not working. Or I've been doing carnivore for X number of weeks and it's not working. What do I do? Then all of a sudden you'll notice the floodgates open and people start giving their recommendations, which is great. That's what this community is for. But the very first thing that I notice that comes into my mind when I read this is define keto, define carnivore, because you can throw a damn rock and get a different version of all of these things. I've said for years, since literally 2000 and maybe 10, and this is was immediately my take on this. Keto is not about high fat. It's about low carb. To produce a state of ketosis, you have to remove glucose or be starving to death, one of the two. It's the absence of something more so than the inclusion of something. You can be in ketosis at 60% dietary fat intake. You can be in ketosis at 70, 75%, 80%, or 100%. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to recommend any of those figures for you. You may be different. So first we have to define the terms. If you just tell me, hey, I'm on a carnivore diet and I'm not losing weight, what the hell does that even mean? In that carnivore diet, are you including certain foods that others may not be including? Tell me what you're eating. Tell me what being on a carnivore diet means to you. Tell me what being on a ketogenic diet means to you. What kind of got me popular in the early days in this keto sphere is people would come to me and want me to fix their issues with their ketogenic diet because they were so confused. Oftentimes, I would reduce the amount of dietary fat that they were consuming or the effective energy from that dietary fat. I would reduce that and I would increase the protein. And I saw amazing results from that, especially from people who are over the age of 40. And I think as you age, your protein requirements will increase. Your activity, if you're a hard training athlete, your protein needs are going to increase. And you have to find that sweet spot. But it still can be ketogenic and it still can be carnivore, even if the numbers vary. Some carnivores say carnivore is truly only carnivore if you're eating nothing but meat, having some salt, and drinking water. Well, I disagree. If you really want to whittle it down, what I do is a hyper carnivore diet. And by definition, it's a diet that is 70% or more in animal-based foods. And that's what I like to do. That's what I enjoy. That works for me. So that's what I do. So what does carnivore mean to me? Carnivore to me is all manners of meats, fish, shellfish, poultry, pork, eggs, and full-fat dairy. To me, that's carnivore. So I will have some cheese. I will have some full-fat sour cream. I may put a splash of heavy cream in my coffee. And when I can get raw milk, I get it and I consume it because it's amazing, especially for a hard training athlete. So that's what carnivore means to me. And then I have to adjust the ratios that suit me. But we're going to get to more of that at the end. So hang in there. We're going to pull this all together right at the end and really chop through some bullet points that might give you some aha moments on your program. So why do people not get the results that they had in their mind or they expected? Everybody's got this visual image of what they want to look like. And if they don't start achieving that super fast, they get impatient. We live in a culture where everything has to be immediate and quick fix. And that's the inherent problem right out of the gate. You have to develop some patience. You have to do something that is long-term and sustainable. That's why when most people hire me as a coach, I usually tell people, regardless of what your goal is, give yourself a year to achieve it. I don't care if you're trying to be your genetic best with the addition of muscle mass and getting very, very lean, or if it's losing 100 pounds, or if it's reversing bad blood work. If you give yourself a year to make that huge change, you should be thrilled with that deal. For instance, if you gave me $1 and in 1 year's time, I handed you back $1 million, you wouldn't complain that it took a year. You'd say that was a damn good investment. Shit. If you gave me $1 and I gave you back 10 grand a year from now, you would say that was a great deal. So why is it any different with your health and your physique and your body and the goals that you have in your head, the reflection that you want to see in the mirror? It's going to take time to perfect that, to hone that, to develop that, especially if in previous years you haven't been very on point with your training and your nutrition. You may be coming from a Western diet or standard American diet. You may be coming from a vegan diet. All of those can be terribly disruptive and take a serious amount of time to heal from and change, which really brings us down to kind of a bullet point list of what might be keeping you from getting the results that you're looking for. So let's walk down through that list. Okay. So number one, and I jotted down a quick list because I do this stuff every day. So I kind of have this master list of things that I look for when I'm dealing with clients or when I'm helping somebody out. So number one is quit too early. Quit too early. And what do I mean by that? Well, people will often say, I tried keto or I tried carnivore for 2 weeks and it didn't work. Nothing happened. Or 30 days or even 60 days. And they abandon it. Okay. Why? So you really think that if you're coming off of 1, 2, 5, 10 or more years of not taking care of yourself, not eating right, not training, and now all of a sudden you expect a full reversal in 2 weeks or 30 days or even 60 days or hell, 90 days? That's insane. You have to give it time because so much has to happen inside to make that wholesale shift to you becoming the best genetic version of yourself that you can possibly be. And I believe you can achieve that with the right balance of an animal-based diet, training, and recovery. And there's some X factors too, but that's for another discussion. So walking down that list, number one, I always say quitting too early. You didn't give it enough time. You have to be patient. You have to find a methodology within that terminology. Meaning if you say, I'm going to be carnivore, one, and my version of carnivore looks like this with these foods, okay, cool. And I'm going to consume this much, and I'm going to train this hard, and I'm going to make sure I'm getting this amount of sleep. And then I need to track that over time and see how I do. Then you see, how did that work out for me at that point? And then you gauge the results and you make adjustments as you go. Or that's something that I do as a coach, is I help you make those adjustments as you go, as we move down the road of this entire process. So you have to be open to making some shifts along the way and taking a hard right here or a hard left there and making some adjustments. So quitting too early, the obvious one, that's number one on the list. Number two, that goes with that is adaptation. The reason you may quit too early is because you didn't properly adapt over to a diet that is going to have you producing some ketone bodies for energy. And, everything can kind of fall apart when you go from eating a certain way and then make a complete reversal. You make this big 180 into a completely different method of eating. It can, be tough on the body. Your body doesn't want to freely just change. That's a defense mechanism. That's part of our human defense mechanisms. It doesn't want to make that shift and change. It's used to getting its form of energy a certain way. It's used to a certain way of producing hormones, and it doesn't like to make that shift immediately. But once it learns and understands that the change that you made is going to be beneficial, then it starts to say, oh, okay, I see. And then you start to make that shift and work better. And adaptation is part of it. When you go into a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet, you have to adapt. You have to go through an adaptation phase. And this can take anywhere from a week to 3 months before your body can truly get used to it, depending on where you're coming from. So you have to understand, you have to enjoy the process. You have to find a version of this that works for you, that is sustainable, but still keeps you on the path to achieving your goals. So giving yourself a proper adaptation time. Now, along with adaptation is stair-stepping down. What do I mean by that? Well, if you're used to taking in 3, 4, 5, 600 grams of carbohydrates, even if you would call them healthier versions of carbohydrates, let's say you're even eating just like sweet potatoes and rice and bread, cereals and grains and things like that, and oatmeal, and you think that was relatively healthy, but now you think you need to make that shift. We've convinced you. Well, even if it wasn't cocoa pebbles and gummy bears, your body is still used to burning a lot of glucose. That's its primary fuel source. And your gut microbiome has adjusted to that way of eating and the way that you consume food for energy. So making a shift from carbohydrate metabolism to fat metabolism or lipid metabolism, there's a lot going on in the body and it needs to adjust to that. So I tell people to wean down. Reduce your carbohydrate intake by 25%, and then a couple of days later, reduce it by 25% again. and then maybe a little bit more after that until you've weaned down, you've brought the carbs down, you've brought the fat up, you maybe played with your protein a little bit, you've cleaned things up. And then that's going to make the transition a little bit easier. You got to make sure you're getting lots of sodium, making sure you're getting proper electrolytes. All of these things come into play as, along with adaptation. My next thing was gut microbiome. They play together. So for me, number 3 is adjustment in gut microbiome. If you have a gut microbiome that is used to carbohydrates and vegetables and fruit and garbage, then when you make the wholesale shift over to a carnivore diet or a ketogenic diet, it's going to take some time for your gut microbiome to adjust to what it should be on a species-appropriate diet. And that takes time. So while your gut microbiome is making a change, things can get disrupted. You've heard people say, I tried a carnivore diet. I couldn't stay out of the bathroom. Well, no shit, Sherlock. That's because your gut microbiome was flipped on its ear, and you were going through that shift, and your digestive system was all out of sorts. It didn't really know how to handle it. And while it was making that adaptation in your gut microbiome, that big change, you may have had some of those bathroom visits that you didn't enjoy very much. Big freaking deal. But again, if you go back to the adaptation thing that I spoke of just a few minutes ago, where you can gradually work down, then you can lessen the severity of that. And I promise you, in a very short amount of time, those rushes to the bathroom, those will cease and those won't happen anymore. When you make that adjustment in your gut microbiome, you make that adaptation into what your body chooses to burn primarily for fuel, everything will get back into place and you will feel amazing. What do people always say? What is very, very true? Your cravings go away. You have sustained energy with no dips, no crashes. Your sleep becomes better. Your performance becomes better. You just have this great mental acuity. All these things that you hear about will happen for you too if we just play with it and find the right balance and you make the right adjustment into it. So that's very, very important. So after gut microbiome, you also have to understand that a lot of it can be your endocrine system, meaning hormonal balance. Listen, if you think that success solely hinges on how many calories you take in and then calories back out, you've been terribly misled. I was misled for years. I always knew something was amuck, and I never put full faith into that. I always chose to believe, because it made logical, rational sense, that if your hormones are out of whack and your energy balance is off, energy balance meaning the amount of energy you take in through food relative to the amount of energy you expel through activity, exercise, and things of that nature, then everything plays a role. It all matters. So the calories in, calories out crowd that think it's all that, don't believe it. I think that's the archaic and antiquated way of looking at things. If you want to use calories, that's fine. Use it as a system of tracking if you like, but understand that its accuracy is greatly in question. It's not an accurate way to track things. I use calories like I would a body fat scale. Body fat scales are terribly inaccurate. You know, the kind you can literally buy at freaking Walmart, where you stand on them and they say, okay, you weigh 167 pounds and you are 23% body fat. Well, are you 23% body fat? Those things are rarely very accurate. But you can use that 23 as a method of tracking, meaning if I'm 23 in January, and then I'm 19 in February, and then I'm 16 in March, then I see a consistent drop and I know that things are moving along. These days, calories have to be the same way. If you start with a specific caloric intake based on some chart, graph, or calculation that you did, and if things are working systematically okay for you, then you can use that number and slowly whittle it down or make adjustments to it just solely as a measurement of tracking only. Because protein isn't necessarily 4 calories per gram and fat isn't necessarily 9 calories per gram. There's a lot of variables at play there. So understand that as well. So endocrine disruption is important. Hormones are important. Cortisol secretion, stress hormones. If you have a constant wave of that, it can be very, very bad, and you won't be able to lose weight very easily. your insulin, your glucagon, testosterone, estrogen, growth hormone, all of these things, leptin, ghrelin, all critical. Hell, even cholesterol. If you've been eating a low-fat diet or been on statin drugs and you've been suppressing healthy cholesterol, which is responsible for every damn good thing that happens in your body and is in every cell of the body, and without it, you'd be a complete train wreck, which you may be, and that could be a big part of the problem. Just dropping your calories ain't going to do a whole lot for you. You have to fix the problem, okay? So all of it comes into play. That's why I believe a carnivore diet is spectacular for balancing hormones or restoring proper hormonal function or amount that you need in the body for all these metabolic processes to occur: muscle growth, fat loss, energy, all of these things. So endocrine dysfunction, hormonal dysfunction is part of it. So if you just go on a crash diet and starve yourself, you may lose some weight, but that's not the kind of weight you want to lose. We need to talk about, it's about body composition, the preservation and addition of lean mass while simultaneously bringing down levels of body fat and finding that balance. So that's a whole nother area. So that may be why things aren't working so well. You haven't given yourself enough time and found the right ratios in the amount of protein and fat in order to reestablish proper hormonal balance. Or maybe you haven't found the right amount of energy intake compared to the amount of energy output. So we need to, address all of these things as we go in real time and make adjustments and sort of turn those dials and pull those levers and find what's going to work best for you. So endocrine disruption. The next thing I'm going to put in is dairy. It's a small aside, but it makes sense. In my personal carnivore diet, I take in a lot of meat, poultry, fish, shellfish, copious amounts of eggs, but I also like to include some dairy, things like grass-fed butter. I might take in some hard-aged cheese, maybe some full-fat sour cream here and there, and sometimes I'll even have some full-fat plain Greek yogurt. Well, the problem is you may have heard me say Greek yogurt, and so you start eating Greek yogurt by the tubs full. Well, Greek yogurt per serving has about 6 grams of sugar, lactose, milk sugar. Well, if you're having a little bit of Greek yogurt, maybe a serving a couple of times a week, that's going to be fine. But if you're relying on that as a major food staple, you could run into problems. And some people just don't tolerate dairy. They don't do very well on dairy. So you have to assess that too. So keep that in the back of your mind too as you're choosing the foods that you choose to subsist on your ketogenic or carnivore diet. Some people don't do well on vegetables. It screws their guts completely up. There are a few vegetables that just do not agree with me, that bloat me up, and they're just a train wreck, so I completely avoid them. And for me, I just do better without vegetables, and that's fine. You don't need them. We're going to talk about carbohydrates in a second when we break down what you can do to fix some of the problems. So dairy could be a culprit too, so just monitor that and see if maybe the inclusion or exclusion of dairy might be something you need to consider and play with those percentages a little bit. So to break this down, you could have too high or too low effective energy intake. If you want to call it calories, fine. But don't take the numbers at face value, as I've just suggested earlier. You need to find the right amount that has you performing well, feeling well, balancing those hormones, but still has you losing some body fat, a small amount each week without dramatic drops. If you go too low of a deficit or some protein sparing modified fast, if you take that too long, then we're going right back into one of the main problems that I just spoke about: hormonal balance, endocrine dysfunction. If you stay too low in your effective energy, or if you would prefer me say, if you take your calories too low for too long, it may do more damage. It may give you serious limiting results. Diminishing returns. That's the phrase I was looking for. So too little calories, too little effective energy is bad. Obviously, too much, far more than you need, is going to be bad. So you have to find the right balance with that effective energy intake. And you have to play with the ratios. The other thing is we have to understand and just acknowledge carbohydrate is not needed in the body at all. Not 1 gram ever, and you can live a very productive life. Now, some people may choose to take in a small amount of carbohydrates and use it as a tool for energy around training. I'm fine with that. I do that on occasion now. I used to do it a lot when I was bodybuilding, not as much these days. So I kind of go by feel. When I feel I might need a small amount before a heavy leg day, I may do some. Or if I feel that I feel just great and I'm cruising right along and I don't need it, maybe I'll skip it that day. So I kind of go by feel. Some people may need a little bit of carbohydrate. Some people may do better with 0. But I can tell you don't absolutely have to have it. So that is a personal decision you need to make and experiment with. But don't be looking for the term refeed or carbs around training just as an excuse to eat them. Is it something you truly need to perform? Or is it something that's going to, throw your train off the tracks and derail you? There are some clients that I work with that if they had a damn rice cake before a workout, that would put them on the path of carb binging for the rest of the damn day or just completely derail them for a week. So I tell them, don't have any. Use some hard burning fat like an MCT oil and some black coffee before you train if you need it. Some people don't need anything at all. So carbs are not needed. So we can establish that. Carbs, if at all, are just a hack that you need or may need as a performance tool, or to every once in a while maybe do a structured carbohydrate refeed, especially if you're a physique competitor, to get the wheels turning again for you. But that's a whole nother conversation. So what it really comes down to is the fat and protein ratio. So some people in the carnivore space will say, well, carnivore is, 80% fat and 20% protein. Or they will say it's 70% fat and 30% protein. I've heard people say it's 63-33 or whatever. I personally like a 60-40. I like being around 60% dietary fat and 40% protein. That works really well for me for both feeling great and my body composition goals and performance. 3 things. So you have to find and make an adjustment that works best for you. And it may take you 2-3 months to determine what ratio is going to work best for you to get the wheels turning and to be optimal for the goals you have based on your body, your metabolism, your physiology, no one else's. So everybody's a little bit different, so you have to find what works for you. So don't abandon it just because you didn't lose 15 pounds in a week. There are a whole lot bigger things at play here. Then you need to keep working through the process. And it may take you 6 months to determine what a sustainable ketogenic diet is, what a sustainable carnivore diet is. You may have watched a YouTube video where somebody said carnivore is just meat, salt, and water. So you try that and you realize there's no way on God's earth I could ever sustain this. Then make a change, make an adjustment. Try weaning in some full-fat dairy, or maybe it's just the inclusion of some poultry and seafood and some eggs might bring it all together for you and be everything that you needed to make it very sustainable. I could eat that for the rest of my life and do just fine. So you have to find what version works for you. Just because somebody wrote a book that said carnivore is just ribeyes and water doesn't mean that's going to work for you. It wouldn't work for me. I'll admit it. I don't care. So be honest with yourself and keep playing with this. Give yourself a year, a season, if you will, to go through the paces and start measuring what works, what doesn't, what you can keep, what you can exclude, whatever the case may be. But you are an individual. But I can tell you this, there is a version of it that's going to work phenomenal for you. Why do I love the carnivore diet so much? I think I've already mentioned many reasons. But number one, I never crave once I've caught a groove. I'm not hungry. I enjoy the foods that I eat. I never have bloat or gastric distress. I sleep great. I perform well. My mental acuity is sharp. I don't have any joint distress. Joint distress used to be a huge thing for me. There are people out there in this space that say inflammatory diet is not a thing. The science refutes that. Bullshit. Bullshit. If I eat enough carbohydrate matter, my joints ache, swell, and fall apart. The systemic inflammation in my body is elevated. I can feel it. It's a thing. And I work with enough real people to know that it is a thing and it affects them too. So when I'm on my version of a carnivore diet, those joint distresses are almost completely eliminated. And I enjoy sleep and I put a high value on sleep. And when I'm on my carnivore diet, I sleep like an angel. So all these things are very, very important. You have to find the version that works for you. So why is your carnivore keto diet not working? Well, you didn't give it enough time. You didn't adapt. You didn't allow your body to adjust and make the necessary changes that it needed to make in order to perform optimally. And then you didn't take the time to patiently whittle out the version that is going to be the most sustainable for you to do for the rest of your life. And once you find it and you're cruising on that, then you're going to start to see the things that all these people and people like me talk about. Your blood work's going to be great. You're going to stun your doctor, and he's going to be scratching his head and wonder how you're doing this, eating meat and eggs and some fresh dairy or raw dairy. You can have a laugh about that. You're going to start humming along. You're going to feel amazing. You're going to get the body composition goals that you were looking for. You're going to achieve the performance goals you were looking for. You're going to take that dollar and you're going to turn it into $1 million in a year. Remember that analogy. You're making an investment. So you have to be patient while you grow your return on that investment. So whatever day today is, put a big star 1 year from today. Think this time next year, I'm going to be a whole, completely changed person. Completely from the inside out, wholesale change, different person. I will achieve my body composition goals. I will achieve my muscularity goals. I will achieve my health goals. I will reverse my blood work. I will feel great. Every aspect of my life will be improved. So take your dollar, put it in the pot, make that investment, and then put in the work to make sure that that return on that investment happens. You can do it. Be patient. Trust the process. You wouldn't be doing this if you didn't see others out there getting incredible results, having lives change. That's why people come into this. That's why vegans convert, vegetarians convert. People come off the standard American diet. I've had people come to this way of eating to get away from drug addiction, alcoholism. It's amazing. It can change your entire physiology, but the investment takes time. I know you can do it. And if you need help, turns out that's what I do. So please let me know. Go to robgoodwin.com and let's have a conversation. Coaching programs available. Listen, guys, I absolutely love this. I love this ability that I have to turn on a camera and just let my brain run, let my mouth run, and interact with you guys. And I love it when you guys leave comments. Do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. As of this recording, I'm almost at a whopping 3,000 subscribers. And I just would like to hit that. So if you wouldn't mind, hit that button. And I promise I'll keep doing whatever I can to make sure that the quality of these videos gets better and better. And I can continue to reach out and maybe help you on your journey, whatever that may be. So I'll leave it at that for now. Maybe this helped a little bit, I hope. And you know what I always say? After you've turned this off, train hard, diet harder, but above all else, do whatever you have to do to have a great day.